What's going on, everybody? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, bringing to you again another episode of Kick Your Butt Out. As usual, before I go off into what I want to talk about, I'm going to say what I always say, and I strongly encourage you to hear this with your mind so that you can incorporate this into your life. And that is, if you looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one, y'all. It's just that simple. All right. The title of today's episode of Kick Your Butt Out is called We Trade Greatness for Butt. And before I get off into the content or the meat of what this title means, I want to lay the foundation with a few things. I remember years ago, it was 1996 to be exact, when someone had told me that God had called me. One of the other things that he added to that was God said, usually the messages that he gives you to give are for you first. So that's one of the reasons why today's title is We Trade Greatness for Butt. So again, this is for all of us. And this is not designed to tear us down as much as it's designed to lift us up. It's designed to tear down this settling or butt belief system that we have grown accustomed to so that we can walk in the greatness that God has called each and every one of us to. All right. The other thing is, I remember, at our church, we usually have a first or a second Wednesday service. And I talked about, maybe have talked about this in one of my other podcasts. However, I'm gonna bring it up again because it's relevant to what I'm about to talk about. And in one of those Wednesday services, we had a guy come in, a guest speaker, a pastor, come in, and I think it was from Baltimore. I can't remember his name. However, I remember some of the things that he said. And he said two things that he said really stuck with me. One of them was, God is not displeased with us wanting more. God is displeased with us settling for less. That was one of the things that he talked about, that he said, that I remembered. The other thing that he said was, God won't open up his hands to give us what he has for us because of the mind state that we are in. If he gave it to us, it would probably kill us, whether it was fast or slow. And those things were really profound for me. They stuck out for me. And again, they're kind of relevant to what I want to talk about today from a perspective of we trade greatness for butt. And all of this is from a relationship standpoint. Excuse me. So the first thing that I want to, the first relationship that I want to talk about is our relationship with God. That's the first and most important relationship that anyone in this world is going to ever have. Let me say that again. That's the first and most important relationship that anyone in this world is going to ever have. Your relationship with God has to come first. Here's what we do when we trade greatness for butt. God, I know you called me, but God, I know you're asking for and calling me to a deeper relationship with you. But I know you've told me to pray, but I know you've told me to study my words to show myself approved unto you, a workman who needs not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. But I know you've told me, to be in fellowship with more men and women of God, so that I could learn, so that I could grow, so that I could be taught, so that I could be cultivated. And many of us do that. And here's the settle. Here's the but that we settle for, right? Now, we've already traded that greatness that we know God has called us to it, right? And we have traded that greatness for the but, and here's the but. Well, I go to church I'm in church on, for Christmas and Easter. I ask people who I know in relationship with you to pray for me, or either I'll go to church or I'll listen to a message online or on television or whatever. I'll listen to a pastor preach the word rather than me read my word. These are some of the buts that we trade the greatness in for. When I do go to church, I serve. When I do go to church, I'll usher, or I'll make the coffee, or many things that it's good that we do. But those are settling types of things that we do that's stopping us from the greatness that God is calling us to in that when he's calling us to these closer, more intimate relationships with us. And then we wonder why life is so unfulfilled for us. We wonder why the floodgates of heaven hasn't opened up and the blessings hasn't poured out yet. That we wonder why we still got so much room and we don't see the blessings. We wonder why in many cases we don't have room. We wonder why so many things are going on that's not ideal for us in our lives, that's not fulfilling for us in our lives, that doesn't bring us peace in our lives, that doesn't bring joy in our lives, that doesn't bring a sense of wholeness, that doesn't bring a sense of completeness, that doesn't bring a sense of I am in relationship with God, that I'm okay with where I'm at with God. We wonder why all of these things are going on. We're missing, right? All of these things in our lives. And it's all because we trade greatness for a but. And here's the one phrase or statement that many of us use. I got to find time. My day is so busy doing this, that, or the other that I got to find time to pray. I got to find time to study my word. I got to find time to make it to church. I got to find time for this, that, or the other. And somebody said this to me years ago. If you're looking to find time, it's not gonna ever happen. You'll never find it. Let me say that again. If you're looking to find time, you will never find it. It's never going to happen. Those will continue to be excuses that we use, buts that we use as to the reason why we don't have time. And here's also what that person said. We have to make time. So people, I'm saying this, the most important relationship in the world that any of us are going to ever have in our lives is that one that we have with God. And we have to make time for that. We have to make time for this greatness that God is calling us to and stop settling for the but. Here's one of the reasons why. Now, just let's think about this. I'm going to unpack this before I move on to the next subject that I want to talk about, or the next relationship that I want to talk about. Think about this, people. When God delivered the Israelites, the Hebrews, out of Egypt, he was delivering them out of slavery, out of darkness, out of death, out of all of the stuff that they was going through, bringing them into greatness, right? That was his design. That's what he wanted to do. That was his plan. The problem is none of them made it to greatness because they settled for a but. It was supposed to take them 11 days to get from slavery to the promised land. And it was 40 years. And it's all because we traded greatness in for a but. They couldn't receive the promised land because that but would have killed them. Obviously, it did, because that whole generation that left out of Egypt didn't see the promised land. And it was all because we trade greatness for but. So how long are you in your wilderness? How long are you staying there in your wilderness? How long am I staying in my wilderness? Because we're settling with trading greatness in for but. This is one of the reasons why I have these podcasts. I told y'all, I'm not doing these podcasts for my health. I'm not doing these podcasts for popularity. I'm not doing these podcasts to have a pro Paul where there's millions and millions of people following Paul. I'm trying to get people, all of us, into a healthier relationships. Healthier relationships with God, with ourselves, and with others. So from a standpoint of a relationship with God, like I said, that's the first and most important relationship any of us are going to ever have. We got to stop trading greatness for a but. I always said, if you're looking for a but, it's going to always be easy to find one. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about if you're looking for an excuse, it's going to always be easy to find one. You will never have to look hard for an excuse. Let me say this again. You will never have to look hard for an excuse. It's going to always be available for you, period. All right. So let me go on to the next relationship. Here's a relationship that we trade greatness in for a but. I'm a recovery and relationship coach, right? I say that all the time. I'm your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. A relationship coach means that I deal with people who come in and asking my assistance in building better or healthier relationships with their significant others. That's fine and dandy. Let's do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important, right? Not once, as long as I've been doing this coaching, not once have I ever had anyone come into my office, reach out to me via email, go on my website. Not once have I had one person come to me and say, Coach Paul, can you assist me in building a healthy relationship with me first? What I'm saying is, we want help and assistance in building healthy relationships with our spouses when we got poor relationships with ourselves. So the second, we got this twisted. We think that the first and most important relationship that we have is with God, then the second one is with our spouse. That's not it. The second and most important relationship is not with your spouse. It's with you. Because many marriages, when you go into these marriages or relationships and you get to dig deep and people really be honest about what's really going on in their relationships and in their marriages, it has a whole lot to do with the fact that the individual is unhealthy. Not a bad thing, right? Not saying that you're a bad person. I want to bring some awareness and some knowledge to this thing so that we can start to get out of this but and walk into greatness that God has called us to. And what that means right now is you're going to have to learn how to build a healthy relationship with yourself first. And what do I mean by that? What does a healthy relationship with me look like? You're spiritually well. You're physically well, you're mentally well, you're emotionally well, you're from a community standpoint, you have some wellness in that area, from a social standpoint, from an intellectual standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from an occupational standpoint. You are in those areas, right? You have a great level of wellness. I'm not saying that it's supposed to be perfect. I'm not asking this. There's no requirement for this to be perfect. However, there is a requirement for it to have a healthy balance. And many of us who are coming and asking for healthy relationships with our spouses has a terrible balance of healthiness with ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why lots of our relationships don't work. And then when the awareness comes that we have an unhealthy relationship with ourselves, most of us, not all, but most of us 100% refuse to look in our own mirror. Michael Jackson didn't say, I'm looking at you in the mirror. He said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. And many of us refuse to do that. Many of us refuse to go deep down and do the work that we need to do to build healthy relationships with ourselves. And then again, we wonder why the relationships with our spouses, our God, and everybody else is all wonky. I promise you all, I'm doing this podcast. Today is, I'm taping this Friday, April the 26th. Friday, May 3rd, 2024 will be the day that I celebrate 9 years of recovery. 9 years of total abstinence from any form of substance use disorder. 9 years of learning how to build a healthy relationship. Now, let me say this. It has been off from time to time, but never from a perspective of I traded my recovery in for it. And the only reason why I'm here in this place and in this position that I am now is because one of the things that had to happen for me is I had to deal with me. And that meant I had to dig deep down. I had to go way back and get that 5-year-old Paul, that 10-year-old Paul, and all the other Pauls that was unhealthy, and heal them to get to this place where I am today. I promise you all, I would not have 9 years of recovery if I didn't learn that I had an unhealthy relationship with me. It had nothing to do with my mother, nothing to do with my significant other or others, nothing to do with my children or whoever. It had everything to do with me not having a healthy relationship with myself. And I'm saying to you all, the second and most important relationship that you need to be focused on right now so that you can walk in greatness and get rid of the but is that relationship with you. I'm gonna leave that there. If you want to talk about that later on, we can talk about it. And I can work with you in learning what a healthy relationship with you looks like. Which brings me to my third one. And and it kind of ties into the second one. Here we go. We coming and asking about healthy relationships with our spouses. We trading greatness in for a but. And many of us, I got to keep this 100. Many of us end up in relationships with people and we swear ourselves up and down that this relationship was God ordained. God called me to this relationship. God called her to this relationship. And that is not, many times it's not true. many times it's not true. Because God, let me tell you this. God would be an unjust God if he put the blind with the blind. Why did I say that? Because remember the song, was Paulo Abdul, opposites attracting, whatever, however it went. I don't know how to sing, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Paulo Abdul made the song, opposites attract. No, it's not. Opposites don't attract. You attract people like you. We attract people like us. So if you blind, you're going to attract the blind person. If you unhealthy, you're going to attract the unhealthy person. And I'm not saying that in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm not saying that at some point you all don't learn how to become healthy. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, stop saying that God has put two messed up people together. Because that's not how God works. We attract messed up people because we messed up. And that's one of the reasons why we got to learn how to have healthy relationships with ourselves. Because if we have healthy relationships with ourselves, we're going to attract healthy people. We're going to see an unhealthy person coming from a mile away. Now, if you still accept that person or not, that's on you. That's on you. But I'm just saying, we're trading greatness for butts in relationships, in that we'll pick somebody, and like I said, we'll convince ourselves that God gave us this person, when the person that God picked for us, we'll walk right past them. Or we'll never even get to them because we have settled for a butt. And I'm not saying that other people aren't good enough, or bad people. I'm not saying that, because I don't believe that God made bad people. I'm just saying that wasn't yours. And if it is yours, the only way that you're going to learn how to build a healthy relationship with your spouse, you got to have a healthy relationship with God. You got to have a healthy relationship with you. And then you will see clear to have a healthy relationship with your spouse. And so people come into my office. People reach out for me online, by telephone, or whatever the case may be, and they're asking for help with the relationships with their spouses, whether they are premarital or married. And that's fine and dandy. And 100% of the time, not some of the times, 100% of the time, when I'm digging into what they're, the experiences that they are having in their relationship, it has everything to do with the fact that the individual doesn't have a healthy relationship with themselves or with God. And so, yes, there is a greatness relationship out there for you men and women. There is one. And there is a butt relationship out there for you men and women. Which one do you want? If you want a butt relationship, stay unhealthy. But if you want a greatness relationship, get the relationship thing in order. The order for healthy relationships is God, me, then we start to work our way out. That's the order of healthy relationships. That's the order of, or the difference between greatness and a butt. Yet, what we continue to do is trade greatness in for a butt. And we end up with somebody, someone that we are continuing to go to therapy and counseling and coaching year after year after year after year after year with the same issues. With the same issues. One of the cliches that they use in the recovery community is nothing changes if nothing changes. And the thing about it is, I have to change me. I have to look and see what's going on with me first. And then I can work my way out. That's how that goes. Another one of the relationships that we trade greatness for but is with our children. That's another thing. We have these, as a coach, I have couples, and they're talking about them, which is fine. And in a lot of these situations, our children are being forgotten, for lack of a better word, are being forgotten in this process. And I'm not saying that it's intentional. Never would I say that about any one of these couples, because I know these couples love their children. Even in some of my situations, my children have been forgotten. So let me be the first to confess. In some of my situations, my children have been forgotten. I had to hear from God to say, hey, listen, you need to take a step back, because they still yours. They still your responsibility. Yeah, they all grown. They still your responsibility. You got to build healthy relationships with them as well. Yep. You got to build healthy relationships with them as well. And sometimes, unintentionally, we'll get off into the calling that God has called on our lives. We'll get into following our dreams and visions, our careers. We'll get off into serving others. Right? We'll get off into doing all of these wonderful things. So let me say this. You don't necessarily have to be doing bad to forget your kids. You don't have to be necessarily doing bad to forget your kids. You don't have to be strung out on drugs or alcohol or whatever. You don't have to be caught up into depression or anxiety, suicidal ideations. You don't have to be caught off into all of that stuff to forget your kids. You can be doing the world some good and trade the greatness of a relationship with your kids for a but. Yes, you can. It happens all of the time. Sometimes, right? Listen, people, sometimes we have to do what we need to do to make sure that we make a way for our children. I totally understand that. Just like I talked about earlier when I said that you got to make time for God, you got to make time for your kids too. You got to make time to hug them. You got to make time to tell them that they're good enough. You got to make time to tell them that you love them for what you're doing. You got to make time to spend time with them. You got to make time to lift them up. You got to make time to know what it is that they're doing. All of these things are very important, because if we don't do these things, guess who's going to spend time with our kids? I'm going to keep it 100. Satan and the world. That's who's going to spend time with our kids. That's one of the reasons why our children are dying at alarming numbers. One reason, not the primary, but one of the reasons why our children are dying. And I'm not saying, I don't necessarily mean physical death, because many people walking the face of this earth right now are dead and they're still walking the earth right now. And unfortunately, it's starting to go down into our children. And one of the reasons why it's going down into our children is because we're trading the greatness of a relationship with them for a but relationship. And I'm not saying that the but relationships are bad relationships either, because yes, we need to do some of these good things that we're doing. We can't do it at the expense of relationship with our kids. We can't do that. We cannot do that. So people, I just feel like a particular episode was kind of like a nudging for many of us. A nudging. Hey, pay attention. Pay attention. You're going into some areas it's not healthy, or you're in some areas that's not healthy. You're in some butts and you're walking away from greatness. I have greatness for you. You have greatness in you. You are greatness. Stop trading for a butt. Stop settling for a butt. And like I said, I'm not saying that some of those butts are bad. I'm saying that some of those butts some of those butts are settling. Let me say it like that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Some of those butts that we are in are they're another word for settling. They're another word for excuses. Well, I'm doing this. Yeah, that's good. It's still an excuse. Well, I ain't doing that. Yeah, that's good. It's still an excuse. Well, I provide for my kids. Yeah, that's good, but it's still an excuse. But I'm here for my wife. Yeah, that's good, but it's still an excuse. Well, God, I do come to church. Again, like I said, on Christmas and Easter, yeah, that's still an excuse. Kick your butt out, people. Stop settling. Let's all of us together, because I've done it too. I find myself doing it. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this particular episode. Let's kick our butt out. Let's stop trading in greatness for a butt. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that in due time he may exalt you. I don't know where they came from, except for by the Holy Spirit. So people, thank you all so much for listening in, tuning in to this particular episode of Kick Your Butt Out. We trade greatness for butt. And that's one of the things that we all need to stop doing. So let's help each other. Again, share, like, comment, post, subscribe, repost, invite. Let's have some conversations around this and see what we can do to work together to kick our butt out, so that we can walk in the greatness that God has called each and every one of us to. This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it. And like I always say, be well, do the next right thing. God bless you all. And if you looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. I'm going to keep it simple. Thank you all so much. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all next time.